Yes boys, I'm back, and of course I had to bring the player ratings video after that emphatic 7-1 win over Grimsby Town. Now in today's player ratings video I'm going to be breaking down each and every single individual, talking about the pros and cons of their performance, giving these guys a score out of 10. Now before I get into things, if you like today's video or if you just appreciate a good looking skin fades, then give me a like. I want to get over 2,000 likes for today's video. I'm thinking it's about time now that I start to get a bit more ambitious with the amount of likes I ask for. So if you guys like what I do not ever forget to hit that like button. And we start with Willy Caballero in goal. Now for Caballero, well, this game was incredibly easy. He didn't have too much to do, and anything that he was faced with, he dealt with in a very professional manner. Now when it comes to that goal we conceded, come on, what the hell could Caballero do? What? Grow a few inches in a few seconds? That wasn't going to happen. You can't save them. And from Caballero, professional performance, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Now before we move on to the second player, this video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. If you guys want to download the OneFootball app, you'll find it in the link in the description below. I've been using the OneFootball app to get quick access to all the post-match talk after the game, to hear things from what the players were saying, what the manager said, all that type of stuff. It's convenient, it's quick. What you guys waiting for? You'll find it in the link in the description below. Now we move into the back four, starting with Marcos Alonso at left back. Now for me, it was another standard performance. Credit to Alonso. I thought there were a few times where he showed great composure, a great first touch, and he found good solutions to play out from danger. He struggled to get forward in the first half because the midfield wasn't really there to give these guys a platform to play off. It was nothing too exciting. And I don't know, I still don't personally feel him and Hudson Odoi could have that relationship down the left hand side. I think if you're playing with Hudson, you need to have someone with a pace and someone that's constantly willing to run in behind. For that reason, I'm going to score Marcos Alonso a 6 out of 10. Now we move on to Mark Gay. And wow, I thought this guy looked incredibly composed. The guy's confidence was on point. And as I keep stressing, we produce ballers and players with takers at this club. They all look so composed when they play out from the back, head up, analysing the game. They know where to make their passes before they receive the pass themselves. But what I liked about Mark was that he was willing to get stuck in, and that was reflected in him making 10 recoveries in yesterday's game. Now for me, I thought he was incredibly unlucky when it came to us conceding the goal in the first half. After watching that goal time and time again, it's quite obvious that the Grimsby Town striker is climbing over Gay. It is an unfair advantage, and because of that luck they were afforded, it meant that they capitalised on it, and of course they scored a great goal. My final score for Gay is going to be a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to Kurt Happy Zuma, and I'm a bit surprised by why quite a lot of people in the fan base haven't been too impressed by Kurt Zuma. Now yeah, I understand that he is a bit of a slow burner, he's always been like that, but I really feel like some of the criticism he's been receiving just hasn't really been fair. Now in yesterday's game I saw lots of qualities from Kurt Zuma. His passing out from the back, he was the only defender looking to play those passes in behind, playing passes between the lines, and of course he found the fullbacks a few times with great long passes out from the back. And this is what I mean, and this is what I don't like in football. Certain players, when they have that reputation for having a mistake in them, it means that we don't fairly look at the player. It means that we just look at the player, waiting for him to make a mistake, ignoring all the good things he does in his game. But Kurt Zuma, he won nearly every single tackle. He was commanding, he was technical, he was good playing out. He got a goal which he deserved. He's been testing that goal for a while since the season started. For that reason, I'm going to score Kurt a 7.5 out of 10. And of course, to complete the back four, we need to talk about Reece James. And wow, what a performance at right back. Now of course I understand it's Grimsby Town, but at the same time, when I'm seeing certain teams like Tottenham losing to Colchester and United struggling past Rochdale, I don't see why we as fans should dismiss what we did with so many young players in yesterday's game. And Reece James really was a reflection for the goods that our youth brought. With Reece, honestly, every solution we've needed at right back, Reece has. I want to speak about this guy in further detail later on in today's 5 talking points video, but come on, for a debut, does it get any better than this? To get an assist, and for me it felt like 2 assists because his involvement for the second goal was crucial, and the goal he scored at the end, typical Reece James curler. The guy is too technical, he's too good, and yesterday the game was too easy for him. And for that reason, I'm scoring Reece James an 8 out of 10. Now we move into the midfield, starting with Ross Barkley. Now I'm sure that a lot of you guys have watched my match review. You'll know my thoughts and opinions on Barkley's performance. However, I like to be objective. In the first half, he deserved all the criticism because it felt like he was a player that, I know it sounds a bit cynical, but maybe he was playing for his future. It seemed like he was overextending himself, trying too hard, overcomplicating his game, and he looked incredibly selfish. And in the first half, he was constantly out of position, and it meant that we didn't have that base in midfield to give the other players in our team a platform to make runs off. I thought it was a terrible performance in the first half, but credit to Frank Lampard and credit to Ross Barkley. He came out, he calmed down, he stuck to his tactical responsibilities. Because he did that, he actually played a very good second half. It really was a game of two halves for Ross Barkley. For that reason, his overall score is going to be a 6 out of 10. Now we move on to the young Jorginho, or should we say the young Cesc himself, Billy Gilmour, playing in midfield. Now, Billy was not helped because Ross Barkley just wasn't there to become that passing option for him. But the way this guy took responsibility, my God, he was vocal as hell, constantly dictating where he wants the ball. And on top of that, he was constantly in positions and areas to receive the ball as well. He was so important in helping us transition from defense to attack. But I just love how this kid passes the ball. I'm always talking about elegant players, classy players. If he's passing the ball in this manner, it means that it makes the other player's life easier when it comes to receiving the pass because he doesn't have to waste time thinking about controlling the ball. Players like this are ones that really help attacking players become even better because attacking players know wherever they move, they're going to get found with quality passes. Billy Gilmour was incredible last night. He was the best player on the pitch for me, and for that reason, I'm going to be scoring him an 8.5 out of 10. I mean, honestly, you guys, well done, Billy Gilmour. Now, let's move on to the attacking players, starting with Christian Pulisic. Now, with Christian Pulisic, he made it 3 assists in 4 starts, which is a decent start. It tells us that he does have potential. There is a lot more to come from him. And I think one thing we can do to make his life easier is to make sure he has the right fullback options down his side. Whenever Reece was getting forward, we saw Pulisic moving more in field, playing alongside Mitchell and getting inside the box. That's how Pulisic likes to play. If the fullbacks aren't doing that, it means that Pulisic becomes susceptible to getting overloaded down his flank. And when you're a young guy, 20 years old, that's not too physically strong, up against 2-3 players down your flank, and you have to receive the ball with your back to goal, it's going to be very difficult. Of course, he needs to adapt, I do sympathise, but still, moments where his quality should be a bit better, it wasn't really there in yesterday's game. I'm going to sound harsh, but for me, he should have scored at least 1 goal due to the opportunities he found himself in, and I'm thinking he needs to be a lot more clinical. For that reason, I'm going to be scoring him a 6 out of 10. Now, moving on to Pedro, who played as our number 10 in yesterday's game. For me, quite a subdued performance. I felt like him, Mitchell and Ross Barkley were the most selfish players on the pitch in yesterday's game, constantly looking for shooting opportunities instead of playing passes when it was needed. He took his penalty well, but for me, I thought his performance was quite, I don't know, it wasn't the best for me. For that reason, I'm going to score him a 5 out of 10. And now to complete the attacking 3, we need to talk about our star man, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and how did he perform after finally returning back to the first team. Now with Callum, there were a lot of pros and a lot of cons. I'll start with the pros. For me, one massive pro was his first touch in yesterday's game. I mean, it was effortless, it was audacious, it was skillful, and he's a player that really possesses that individual flair we need. What separates big teams from medium-sized teams is that individual spark and ability. It's something we've missed so far in the first team, and with Callum we saw glimpses and signs of what he's going to be providing to the team as the season goes on. I mean, looking at the final goal he scored, we could see that he created that for himself, of course using some skill to beat his man before he smacked in an effort in the bottom left corner. Another thing I liked too was how he combined with the fullbacks out wide. But let's move on quickly to cons. For me, I felt like Callum was doing a bit too much at times, which is understandable. You're playing against Grimsby, he's just come back after months. Of course you're going to be a bit gassed, you want to play with a bit of skill, You want to show the fans what to expect. But I think because he was overplaying a bit sometimes, it meant that a few times he did lose the ball in very sloppy areas. And of course, his finishing could have been a lot better. And for those reasons, I'm going to be scoring Callum a 7 out of 10. And now to complete the first team, we move on to Michy Batshuayi up front. And what did I tell you guys in the live stream? With Michy up front, expect this guy to constantly look to aim for shots on goal instead of playing towards his teammates. And I'm not too sure about how I feel about this. Now, of course, Michy does have an incredible striking technique. Left foot, right foot with his head. The guy knows how to get goals. But, you know, when you're playing for a big team, when you're playing for a team that has midfield options that can get goals, it means that your game has to be more nuanced and you have to play for the team a bit more. I understand if you're playing for a Crystal Palace, then yeah, anytime you receive the ball, you are going to take a shot on goal. But when you have guys that make runs off you, etc., etc., I felt there were a few times where Michy should have done much better and played towards the team instead of playing towards himself. I understand he scored 2 goals, but for me, the game kind of was like a training ground game. And it was quite evident that Michy was guaranteed to get goals in yesterday's game. Still though, some of his finishes weren't good enough. And I'm just thinking, for the amount of opportunities he created for himself, he really wasn't as accurate in yesterday's game. For that reason, I'm going to be scoring him a 6.5 out of 10. Now, we move on to the subs that made their debuts in yesterday's game. An incredibly proud moment for all of us, 2 17-year-olds in Ian Maatsen and Tino Anjorin. Now, let's start with Maatsen playing at left back. And my god, did this guy look impressive. I mean, immediately, and yeah, I understand in the second half, Grimsby are tired, more space opened up, but at the same time, his end product was always on point. It's criminal that he didn't record his first assist for us because of some poor finishing from his crosses, but the way and speed in which he played his crosses. Look at how our academy guys play their low different crosses. It glides off the pitch instead of bouncing up and down like how Marcus Alonso and Azpilicueta do it. Maatsen oozed class, he oozed confidence, he was so good going forward as well, and let's hope that he does find himself getting more opportunities to get more game time. For that reason, I'm going to be scoring Ian a 7 out of 10. And to complete everything, we move on to Tino Anjorin. And wow, does Tino look like a very unique player. You know, I get like flashbacks of like a bit of Mason Mount and a bit of Ruben. And when you look at the player's characteristics, I mean, for a guy that plays in his position, I think he's like, what, 6'1", he's built. How many cams do you see with a physique like that? And it means that he could develop to be a very interesting player. In yesterday's game, we saw glimpses of his quality. We saw him willing to drive forward, beating his man. We saw his pressing ability as well. He was very unlucky not to register a goal, and I liked how he was still thinking to salvage a moment by looking to play someone in instead. Another confident performance, but for me, I thought that Maatsen impressed a bit more. For that reason, I'm going to be scoring Tino a 6.5 out of 10. And boys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. Thank you for watching. In the comments below, I want to read from you what player ratings you would have given the players in yesterday's game. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Nimi FC, this is Blue Line TV, signing out.